Hello, James here. How you guys doing? Well, I'm going to get right into it and show you a couple stories what's happened to black immigrants in other parts of the country. And then hopefully if any black immigrants that's watching this video take note on what's going on around the world. Not just in America, but in other places. Let's get to the story.
Authority in Kingdom of Saudi Arabia Sunday cancelled visas of Nigerian. About 264 people. Yeah, not nice, right?
Don't be afraid of the dark. Be careful with stars. Not everybody's gonna guide you, baby. Don't let it rain on your spot.
What's happening, everybody? I hope you're doing good. Thank you very much for stopping by. You are very much appreciated, you know it. Okay, so we are in Nigeria, and Nigerians took a flight to Saudi Arabia. Okay, they flew to Saudi Arabia, and on arrival at the airport, they were told that 264 passengers' visas were cancelled. Okay, I think this is something we need to worry about because it's coming back often and often. Okay, I know my Nigerian people are here and many other African people from all over the place. This doesn't necessarily include or concern exclusively Nigerians, but I think we're going to touch different things so we can understand where this comes from. So authorities in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia on Sunday cancelled visas of 264 passengers who arrived in Jeddah from Nigeria on Air Peace. And Air Peace obviously is a Nigerian aircraft. They did not explain immediately why the passengers, most of whom were visiting Saudi, were denied entry. Daily Trust reported that the flight took off from Moratla Mohammed International Airport in Lagos via Malan International Airport on Sunday night and landed in King Abdulaziz Airport in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. But the consternation of the airline staff in Saudi Arabian Authority announced that the passengers' visas were denied. Just imagine, you take a flight to a different country and you get there, you prepare yourself, you get ready for this. And once you get there, they say, no, sorry, you're going back home. For what reason, you don't know. There's no explanation for it. The incident occurred barely 1 week after Air Peace launched its direct flight to Saudi Arabia. 1 week. So this carrier started just 1 week to Saudi Arabia. And it's gathered that it was the Nigerian embassy that waited the Saudi Arabian authority to reduce the number of passengers that would be returned to 177. So from 264 to 177. And the Nigerian embassy had to negotiate with Saudi Arabians to get 177 people returned rather than 264. This really hurt my feelings, and there are many speculations. What are the reasons? Why do you think the Nigerian travelers have been denied visas to Saudi Arabia? Why do you think? Stop right now. Write your comment and come back. Okay, we're going to try and understand. If you stopped, great. Alright, so they did not give a very clear answer to the reason to why they denied the visas to Nigerians. Okay, there are many speculations. We're going to try to go through one by one and try to understand maybe the reason why they refused that. So many people think this new carrier that's flying from Nigeria to Saudi Arabia is a competition to the Arabians. Why? Because it's a Nigerian aircraft. Air Peace Limited is a private Nigerian airline founded in 2013 with its head office in Ikeja, Lagos, Nigeria. The flag carrier is the largest airline in Nigeria and West Africa. So it's apparently the largest carrier in Nigeria, but it's not officially Air Nigeria, like the flagship of Nigeria. On the other hand, the Saudi Arabia, the aircraft flying from Saudi Arabia to Nigeria as only, a carrier doing the traffic between Nigeria and Saudi Arabia. Therefore, Air Peace coming now very strongly with reduced prices, obviously, reduced ticket prices that will draw many more Nigerians going to Air Peace than going to the Saudi Arabian aircraft, right? Let's think about this. You have two aircraft doing the same route. Okay, one is more expensive than the other, and let's say quality is not necessarily what you're aiming for. You just want to get there, do whatever you want to do, and come back home. Where would you go? Where would you spend your money? If you want to keep the maximum of money with yourself, you're going to certainly find the cheapest aircraft or the air carrier, right? And that's what many people think is perhaps the reason why the Saudi Arabians canceled visa. Why did they cancel visa? Is to discourage Airpeace from doing the route from Nigeria to Saudi Arabia in order to keep the monotony or the monopoly of that route, so they can make the maximum of the money they can make. I mean, think about it. You plan this. You don't just go to Saudi Arabia for nothing. Obviously, before you go, with a country like Nigeria, let's talk about this. I mean, you know, Nigeria is not very much known for good things. Unfortunately, fellas, and we need to say it, before you travel from Nigeria to another place, they certainly have already done the research about you. Who are you? Where do you come from? What type of job do you do? Are you genuine? Do you really have the money that you say you have for the things that you're pretending to do where you are going? Before they issue a visa in Lagos, right? Then you take your flight, you go all the way to Saudi Arabia. Then you get to Saudi Arabia, they cancel your visa, they say go back to your country. I mean, if this is just a blatant disrespect to who you are, why do you think they will do that? The first idea is because they're trying to keep the monopoly of the route.
I can remember.
We all know that Nigerians' visas were cancelled in Dubai a while back, if you don't know about it. Yeah, well, President Bola had to go and negotiate with Dubai after a full year of no visa for Nigerians. And the reason we're not cleared either. Many say it was because Nigerians were doing illegal stuff in Dubai. Some say they were involved in drugs trafficking, I mean human trafficking, drugs and stuff like that, and many stuff. And that perhaps was the reason why they said they don't want any Nigerians. But also, it was not just Nigerians, okay? There was a moment where Dubai completely closed its doors to many African countries. Yeah, they did that several times. They did it during COVID, and at that time I remember some Africans pushed back because they cancelled whatever they had to cancel. Then there was another time, that's when for a full year no Nigerian could go to Dubai, as well as some Africans. So there was no explanation provided for that. Now my question is this: why do Africans accept that? Can Dubai say no to Europeans? Like, we don't want any European in Europe? Can they say that? If they cannot say that to Europeans, why do they feel they can do that for African nationals? Is it because African nationals are not good enough? Is it because African nationals are not bringing good things in Dubai? I mean, let's face it, Africans go to Dubai to spend money, right? All these girls that you see on Instagram, the slay queens and stuff, they all go to Dubai, right? Many people that want to do business in terms of gold and stuff and come sell back in Africa. If you don't know, many young ladies and Africans, especially in Central Africa, Eastern Africa, will go to Dubai, purchase gold and come back like, you know, chains, watches and stuff like that, jewelry in gold, and come to Africa and resell. That's money for Dubai. So isn't that a good reason enough? And tourism, you know, spending money on Gucci, on stuff, whatever. Gucci is paying tax to Dubai. So Africans contribute tremendously in the economy of Dubai. So why would Dubai refuse African entry? That's a good question. Why can African reciprocate that when they refuse them entry? Why can Africa say, you know what, for now, don't send your flight here, don't send your aeroplane here. Any of you guys, they should not come in our country either. Because I firmly feel, fellas, people can only respect what's valuable. That's life. People can only buy you at the price you're selling yourself. If you sell yourself high, okay, high enough with respect to yourself and consideration, you're most likely going to get the price that you deserve, that you think you deserve. Okay, if you sell yourself short, you show that you are very accessible, you accept everything. Okay, they can do anything they want to you, you're not going to react to it. You're most likely going to get that. The bottom line is, people don't give respect for free. People respect what they aspire to. People respect what they cannot control. People respect what they find mysterious. Why can Africans reciprocate? That's a big question. The reputation of Nigerians are very negative. I'm sorry to say it, but somebody has to say it. And I'm sure this is not the first time you hear it. Okay, you can go to Kenya, or we're going to put a video about Kenya. This is how Kenyan people speak about Nigerians.
Even in Nairobi here, when you go to Kilimani here, we always see Nigerians opening, wanafungua bunduki, wanataka kupigana na the Kenyans. Those kind of things we have to make sure that they stop. If you go to Donholm, they are doing very crazy things with our ladies, and those are the things that, in fact, even this week on Sunday, the police arrested 3 people. Some of them were Nigerians with fake money. M-Pesa, they are hacking into our M-Pesa. They are having fake money, illegal trade that are done by these guys.
This is what they say about Nigerians in Kenya. This is not limited to Kenya. You can go to South Africa. You'll hear a lot of things. Some of these things are not justified. Yes, don't get me wrong. Some of these things are just, reach, completely reach. But are we going to say that the things that a lot of Nigerians are accused of are completely wrong? No. Some Nigerians are involved in things that are very shady, extremely shady. Uganda has voted a law recently. If you get married to a Nigerian person, instead of waiting for 3 years to get a Ugandan nationality, you will get to wait longer before you become Ugandan. Because some Nigerians went to Uganda, married these beautiful Ugandan girls with the biggest behind in Africa. This is what they say. They have the best behind in Africa. Anyway, they go to Uganda, get Ugandan girls, and get married legally and get nationality, and then they get to fly to Britain, because obviously it is much easier for a Ugandan to fly from Africa to Britain as compared to a Nigerian. Why don't Nigerian get the same benefit from England equally as Ugandan and any other African nation? That's a big question you have to answer. So Uganda voted a law saying no more Nigerian getting Ugandan nationality after little years. They have to stay together for many years. So it's recurrent. This is not something new. It's the same complaint. People of South Africa saying Nigerian doing drugs. Are they telling the truth? Well, not all Nigerians are doing drugs. That's a lie. There are very good Nigerians that are engineers, doctors, and whatever, doing good things. But are they telling complete lies? Absolutely not. You just need to go to certain area. You see, this is run by Nigerians. It's very clear. You go, as in the evenings, you can see them running the show. And unfortunately, these ones have spoiled the reputation of all the good Nigerians that exist in Nigeria and elsewhere. And then everywhere you have to go, somewhere you're going to be treated in a way that your fellas, our brothers, have done in the past. It's very sad. And I feel like many of these people need to be held accountable in some way. They need to be put in jail for the disaster they're creating around the reputation of the country. Then again, let's not get carried over. This country, Saudi Arabia, decided to send 264 Nigerians back to Nigeria after negotiation, sending 177 people. The reason we're not very cleared, so we can see they're trying to avoid competition because this aircraft just started early, like only it's been a week. They don't want competition, number one. Number two, we also know that there has been an incident with the aircraft almost crashing a couple of times. The latest was apparently a week ago. And there was another incident. They said the incident occurred early 1 week after Air Peace launched its direct flight to Saudi Arabia. Yeah, they say one aircraft drifted off the runway due to algae contamination. You have an international runway that's contaminated by algae. I mean, you're endangering people. I'm sure this is not the first time. Several times due to algae contamination. So yeah, you let me know how you feel about this.
Let me show you about the Ukraine.
I was begging. The official literally looked me in my eye and said in his language, only Ukrainians, that's all. That if you are black, you should walk.
In recent years, the media has painted a vivid picture of Ukraine as a nation under siege, facing aggression from its powerful neighbor Russia. The narrative often portrays Ukraine as a victim, seeking refuge and support from the international community against its perceived invaders. However, amid the calls for solidarity, it's essential to acknowledge an ugly reality that exists within Ukraine, which is the disturbing truth of racism expressed by Ukrainians towards black people. The media's focus on Ukraine's conflict with Russia has overshadowed internal challenges, one of which is the presence of racism within the country. Despite Ukraine's aspirations to align itself with European values, instances of racism, particularly towards black individuals, have been reported. In recent, Ukraine has become a hotspot for people from all over the world, and surprisingly, a significant number of them are black students in pursuit of education and new opportunities. The lure of Ukraine for African students can be attributed to various factors, ranging from its educational facilities to the promise of a fresh start. One of the primary reasons behind the influx of black individuals into Ukraine is the country's reputation for offering quality education. Ukrainian universities have gained international recognition, particularly in fields such as medicine, engineering, and IT. The relatively affordable tuition fees compared to Western countries make Ukraine an attractive destination for students from African nations, where access to higher education can be challenging. In fact, statistics reveal that black students constitute a substantial 20% of Ukraine's student population, showcasing the country's appeal as an educational hub for those seeking diverse academic opportunities. Beyond education, Ukraine is seen as a land of promise for many black individuals aspiring to build a better life. The country's growing economy and evolving industries create a perception that opportunities abound, waiting to be seized by ambitious individuals, irrespective of their background. Many black people arrive in Ukraine with dreams of finding stable employment, launching successful businesses, or simply experiencing a better quality of life. The prospect of a fresh start and the belief in Ukraine's potential for personal and professional growth have been powerful driving forces behind the migration of individuals from Africa to this Eastern European nation. However, the dreams of a better life often collide with the harsh reality of challenges faced by black people in Ukraine. Reports from the African community in Ukraine highlight instances of racial discrimination, limited job opportunities, and a sense of cultural isolation. The disparity between expectations and reality has led to frustration and disappointment among those who had hoped for a smoother transition. While Ukraine has been a destination for people from various backgrounds, the experiences of racism among black individuals were often downplayed or overlooked. With the escalation of the Russian-Ukraine conflict, so did the instances of racism against black individuals. Reports emerged of increased racial profiling, discrimination, and even violence against people of African descent. The heightened tensions brought to light a concerning lack of attention to the challenges faced by black individuals in Ukraine. The focus on the conflict and its repercussions seemed to overshadow the urgent need for addressing racial issues within the country. This disregard for the struggles of the black community raised questions about Ukraine's commitment to fostering inclusivity and combating racism. In this video, you will learn the true meaning of being black in the streets of Ukraine. The truth that has been exposed due to the recent conflict in the region and what it truly means for a country that claims it is being victimized. Also, as a way of supporting the channel, hit the like button of the video, share, and subscribe to help the channel grow. Your support means a lot to us. If we truly want to know how it feels to be black in a country that claims to be oppressed by its neighbors, we need to take a look at the words and experiences of those who have spent their lives there. On former Soviet Union soil, racism, as noted by Terrell Starr, an independent scholar from New York, follows its own troubling trajectory. His insights, shared during a Kennan Institute event on May 2, 2011, shed light on the unique challenges faced by African Ukrainian women. As a Fulbright scholar conducting research in Ukraine, Starr, also a journalist, adopted a multimedia approach to unravel the complex experiences within the African Ukrainian community. Starr's investigative journey led to a powerful culmination, a photo exhibition capturing the narratives of his interview subjects. Among those stories, one stood out prominently, that of Angelina Diash, a university student of Angolan and Ukrainian heritage. Raised in Ukraine, Diash, despite possessing a Ukrainian passport, conveyed a disturbing reality. She felt the need for a social visa to truly be accepted as a fellow citizen. Starr vividly recalled her sentiments. Although I have a passport that shows I'm Ukrainian, I need a social visa. Through Diash's experiences, Starr unraveled the complexities faced by minorities in their own country. The struggle for acceptance, the need for self-reliance, and the forging of a strong self-identity became apparent. Being singled out by race, as Starr emphasized, prompted individuals like Diash to swiftly understand and embrace their true selves. However, Starr's research went beyond personal narratives. It unearthed a disconcerting truth about the prevailing racism and xenophobia in Ukraine. For Starr, this reality hit close to home. Being of African American descent, he encountered firsthand the harsh consequences of racial bias. During his stay in Kyiv, Starr revealed a staggering fact. He was stopped by Ukrainian police an alarming 29 times. His experience became a testament to the rising tide of discrimination faced by black individuals in Ukraine. This interview dates back to 2011, giving some insight into the harsh reality of being born of black skin in a country that claims to be advanced and blind to racism. Over a decade later, racism still remains a problem in Ukraine. From day one of the Russian invasion, reports of discrimination at Ukraine's border began to surface.
There's a different way to treat HIV. It's every other month injectable Cabenuva for adults who are undetectable.
Russian invasion, reports of discrimination at Ukraine's border began to surface.
There's been a lot of segregation and racism. It seems like there's a hierarchy of Ukrainians first, Indians second, Africans last. So there has been a lot of segregation in that sense. And then amongst the communities trying to flee Ukraine, there's been a lot of violence.
In the early hours of February 24th, 2022, Corinne Sky, a Zimbabwean-born student doctor, woke up to distressing news on Twitter. Kyiv had been bombed and conflict had erupted. The urgency to leave Dnipro in Ukraine on the same day was met with long queues and cash shortages at ATMs, making escape impossible. Undeterred, Corinne spent the entire day collecting resources, creating a census, and setting up Telegram chats to assist her African colleagues in navigating the tumultuous situation. Being familiar with the apathetic attitudes of many African embassies, Corinne anticipated the challenges that African students would face in Ukraine. Poland emerged as the first neighboring country opening its doors to Ukrainian refugees, but uncertainties lingered about whether this hospitality would extend to Africans. Eventually, assurances came that everyone, regardless of passport or nationality, was welcome. Romania, Hungary, and Slovakia followed suit. On the evening of February 25th, with sirens blaring in Dnipro, Corinne and her colleagues decided it was now or never. They embarked on a journey to Lviv by car. A typically 10-hour drive turned into a grueling 26-hour odyssey. Military checkpoints, armed vigilantes, and the constant fear of the unknown characterized their passage. Corinne, during these hours, documented their experience on Twitter, fundraised for those still stranded, and shared resources with fellow Africans trying to flee. The journey, fraught with peril, was a test of resilience, and Corinne's focus on helping others became a crucial distraction. Despite the chaos, she faced incessant calls and texts, adding to the anxiety. Meanwhile, Corinne's mother, looking after her granddaughter in Leicester, had to maintain composure amid the mounting concerns for her daughter's safety. Upon reaching Lviv, Corinne, with the help of raised funds, ensured accommodation for those she traveled with and others picked up along the way. In a Lviv hostel, she encountered 6 girls from Zimbabwe, Eswatini, and South Africa. They shared stories of harrowing racism in Dnipro, facing rejection and discrimination as they tried to evacuate. The group further revealed the challenges at the Ukrainian-Polish border, waits of 65 hours and racial discrimination. Choosing Romania over Poland due to these distressing accounts, Corinne and her companions encountered another form of discrimination at the Ukrainian-Romanian border. Forced to join a pedestrian queue segregated by race, they endured 10 hours in harsh weather without proper provisions. After 10 hours, they finally reached the back of the queue towards the Ukrainian side of the Romanian border. Despite being only 9 kilometers away, it took 3 days to reach the front. However, reaching the front of the car queue marked a distressing turn. The group began experiencing racism and segregation at the hands of Ukrainian people. They were told to leave the car queue and join a pedestrian queue designated for Black, Asian, and Arab people. As Corinne began recording this incident, a Ukrainian man attempted to lunge at her, adding a frightening dimension to their ordeal. Shockingly, the military, stationed at the border, did not intervene. Instead, they sniggered when the man tried to lunge at Corinne. This blatant display of racism and the lack of support from the military emphasized the persistent challenges faced by individuals fleeing the conflict based on the color of their skin. A group of Indian students, witnessing the unjust incident at the Ukrainian-Romanian border, offered solidarity and allowed Corinne and her fellow African travelers to join the queue with them. This act of kindness provided a brief respite in the challenging journey. Yet, the challenges persisted. The group endured an additional 10 hours standing outside in the snow, rain, and -3-degree weather. The conditions were harsh, with barely any food, no water, and no paramedics. Only the stoic presence of soldiers guarding the border. Despite the physical discomfort, Corinne found strength in the shared camaraderie of those enduring the same hardships. As they reached the final military checkpoint and proceeded to passport control, a disheartening realization dawned on Karine. There, in plain sight, was a stark example of segregation. On her right, she could see through the fence Ukrainian families passing through effortlessly, bypassing the queues, and proceeding directly to Romania. The stark contrast between their experience and that of the Ukrainian families underscored the discrimination faced by Karine and her fellow travelers based on the color of their skin. Arriving in Romania, Karine found solace in the warmth and hospitality of the people. Despite the hardships, Romania became a haven that showcased the true meaning of humanity. However, her shocking story is just one of many. In the midst of the tumultuous events following Russia's invasion of Ukraine, Jessica Orakpo, a 23-year-old medical student hailing from Nigeria, and her friend Natasia, a 24-year-old economics student from Zambia, found themselves facing a tough decision to leave their university lives in Ternopil, western Ukraine, and head towards the safety of the Polish border. The journey commenced in a cab, the engine humming with urgency as they embarked at 8 a.m. one Saturday. Their destination was the Polish border, approximately 136 miles away. However, 2 hours into the journey, their hopes collided with the reality of an impassable wall of traffic. Undeterred, and with a sense of determination born from necessity, Jessica and Natasia chose to continue their quest on foot, armed with only a modest collection of clothes, blankets, and crucial travel documents. By the time they drew close to the Polish border, a day later, they faced another obstacle, one that Orakpo says was prompted by her race. The Polish border, while a beacon of potential safety, also became a stage for the unsettling reality of racial discrimination. Numerous African and South Asian citizens in Ukraine shared similar experiences, and their claims found confirmation from the United Nations Refugee Agency and other authorities. Orakpo and Nanyangwe say they were among those set apart and denied evacuation from Ukraine because they are African. Rest stops during their journey were moments of respite, yet they were also where the duo encountered the harshness of racial bias. Lying on blankets, trying to recover from the fatigue of nearly 12 hours of walking, they found solace in a school's basketball court-turned-shelter, courtesy of a compassionate traffic warden. The following day brought them to a bus stop in the town of Mostiska, a waypoint toward the Polish border. However, here too, their path was marred by discrimination. Authorities, in a bewildering move, permitted only women with children and pregnant women to board the buses. Even a third bus was allocated to pets and their owners, leaving Jessica and Natasia in a state of disbelief. Faced with such exclusion, Jessica attempted to speak a bit of Ukrainian, feigning pregnancy in the hope of securing passage. Brief success was met with crushing disappointment as whispers of racial prejudice resounded around them. The bitterness of the situation was exacerbated by the comments of onlookers wondering aloud why people of color were being treated differently. "We were this close to entering," Jessica lamented. However, she overheard other people in the station saying in Ukrainian, "Why are the blacks entering?" which explained why she had struggled to gain access. The frustration deepened when she confronted a Ukrainian woman overseeing the line, seeking answers to their unjust exclusion. The response, a nonchalant shrug, resonated as a painful acknowledgement that, in the critical moments of a crisis, they were deemed unworthy of evacuation based solely on the color of their skin. The current racial barriers in Ukraine extend beyond the experiences of black students like Jessica and Natasia. Even athletes, individuals who often transcend borders through their talent and recognition, find themselves entangled in the web of discrimination. Consider the plight of Maurice Creek, a professional basketball player originally from Maryland who had played college basketball for Indiana University and George Washington University. Despite his achievements on the court, the conflict in Ukraine didn't spare him. Stranded in a bomb shelter in Mykolaiv, Creek faced the harsh reality of the situation, emphasizing that no level of success or recognition could shield him from the chaos. Moreover, the words of Karine Sky, a Zimbabwean medical student residing in Great Britain, shed light on a disconcerting hierarchy in the attempts to leave Ukraine. Sky likened the situation to Squid Games, with Ukrainians and Europeans positioned at the top, individuals from India and the Middle East in the middle, and Africans relegated to the bottom. While this perspective is alarming, it underscores a historical pattern of systemic biases and discriminatory practices. The experiences of Maurice Creek and Corinne Skye serve as stark reminders that racism doesn't discriminate based on achievements or social standing. Even athletes, who often serve as ambassadors of unity through sports, are not exempt from the challenges posed by racial hierarchies. Despite a history dating back to the 1920s, where Africans first began attending schools in what is now Ukraine, the relationship between the nation and black students has been marked.
Not all matcha was created equally. There are two main kinds, culinary and ceremonial. The culinary grade matcha is typically lower in quality.
Here is your latest Africa news. Ukraine's president is confused to why Africa isn't supporting Ukraine, despite history of racism. In a recent interview with journalists from Africa, conducted since the commencement of the Russia-Ukraine war, Ukrainian President Zelensky is bewildered by Africa's lack of support for Ukraine, despite its history of racism toward Africa. The Ukrainian government has been pondering why African countries, with a few exceptions, have exhibited hesitance in siding with Ukraine. Given that Africa constitutes a quarter of the member states within the United Nations, with its countries spanning numerous geopolitical spectrums, this issue holds significance. Zelensky seeks to depict Ukraine's conflict with Russia in a manner that might garner sympathy from African audiences, portraying it as a struggle for independence against a ruthless empire. This indeed signifies Russia's colonial aggression towards Ukraine. Many of your ancestors endured similar trials, he asserted. However, when it comes to engaging with Africa, the Ukrainian president's proficiency has not been on par with his interactions with audiences in the rest of the Western world. He has repeatedly encountered barriers preventing him from addressing the African Union and the parliaments of various African countries during his global charm offensive. When questioned about the multiple instances of racism faced by African students in Ukraine, where they were denied access to evacuation routes during the early stages of the war or subjected to discriminatory treatment while seeking safety, Zelensky commented that these were isolated incidents that occurred amidst the chaos of war. He asserted that his government had made every effort to safeguard all individuals, irrespective of their race or nationality. Please understand, I empathize with them equally, whether they are Ukrainian or African students. We are committed to persevering, he expressed, referring to the African continent. Let us know in the comments below if you found this video informative. Please show your support by liking and sharing this video for the
nation and black students has been marked by a complex narrative. The Soviet Union, in a strategic move, initiated the formal recruitment of African students for college and professional education in 1957. Interestingly, this coincided with the year Ghana gained independence from Great Britain. The Soviet Union sought to foster positive relations with African nations, and on the global stage, highlight its burgeoning diplomacy. Fast forward to Ukraine's independence from the Soviet Union in 1991, and a significant shift occurred. Scholarships to African students dwindled, reflecting a change in priorities. However, despite this shift, African students continued to find Ukrainian educational institutions appealing. Today, more than 16,000 African individuals pursue studies in Ukraine, constituting over 20% of the country's international student population. While on the surface, Ukraine's initiative to attract African students suggests a commitment to international diversity and collaboration, the experiences recounted by individuals like Jessica Arakpo, Natizia Nanyangwe, Maurice Creek, and Corinne Skye paint a different picture. The disparity between the welcoming facade and the discriminatory treatment faced by black students in times of crisis reveals an unsettling truth. It seems that while Ukraine may aim to exploit the presence of black students for diplomatic and international relations, the on-ground reality is a stark contradiction. Despite their significant contribution to the academic and cultural landscape, these students face adversity and discrimination that contradicts the supposed value placed on their presence. The discrimination faced by Africans, particularly those born and raised on the continent, is not an isolated issue tied solely to the war in Ukraine. It is a systemic problem deeply ingrained in a global context, consistently relegating them to the bottom rung of the global order. This prejudice permeates various aspects of life, manifesting prominently in travel, migration, and media coverage. One glaring example lies in travel. Holding an African passport often translates to navigating a labyrinth of bureaucratic hoops, primarily in the form of visa requirements. The process is not just lengthy and costly, it's also precarious. Visa applications for Africans are subject to arbitrary decisions, with the outcome sometimes hinging on the mood of the official handling the case that day. Stories abound of Africans having to overprove their eligibility, demonstrating additional disposable income upon arrival, and living under the constant fear of being hastily sent back to their home countries. However, individuals holding passports from so-called strong countries breeze through visa processes, enjoying the privilege of swift approvals and carefree travel. This stark discrepancy in treatment based on the color of one's passport amplifies the structural inequalities that persist on a global scale. The hurdles don't end with travel. Immigration becomes another formidable challenge. Geopolitics and bureaucracy intersect to create a protracted and often redundant process for Africans seeking visas or permanent residency in another country. While Africans are often labeled as migrants, burdened with stereotypes of laziness and poverty, counterparts from the Western world embarking on similar journeys are celebrated as expats, lauded for their supposed hard-working attitude and disposable income. Even if Africans endeavor to assimilate into their new environments, they still encounter resistance. The prevailing reluctance to fully accept them is compounded by a persistent perception of difference, rooted solely in the color of their skin and race. This double standard is glaring, as the same attempts to integrate that are met with skepticism for Africans are readily embraced when undertaken by individuals from the Western world. For instance, a Nigerian doctor who had lived in Ukraine for years, who spoke Ukraine fluently and selflessly helped Ukrainians in the long queues, was forced to go to the back and start again, and treated like just any other African with black skin when the crises hit Ukraine. The challenges posed by visas and immigration are further compounded by the persistent negative portrayal of Africans and the continent in the media, especially when it comes to refugees. Over time, Africa and its people have been unfairly branded as dangerous and poor, perpetuating a narrative that has influenced perceptions outside the continent. This damaging characterization plays a significant role in shaping policies and attitudes, creating an environment where Africans, particularly those fleeing war, encounter disdain and refusal, all while navigating treacherous conditions. The stark contrast in media coverage becomes glaring when observing the response to Ukrainian refugees. Countries prioritize opening their borders to them, and the news often highlights the emotional impact of tragic events on people with blue eyes and blonde hair. This narrative reinforces a disturbing bias that dictates tragedy based on the victim's proximity to whiteness, a concept that has been ingrained in many people's mindsets. In contrast, Africans attempting to seek refuge have regularly faced rejection for years. The disparity in treatment based on the racial and ethnic backgrounds of those in crisis is a stark reminder of the deep-seated systemic racism that operates even during times of humanitarian emergencies. Systemic racism, unfortunately, doesn't take a backseat in times of tragedy, warfare, or disaster. On the contrary, it tends to intensify the structures in place systematically disadvantage Africans, setting them up for failure in times of crisis. The systems that are meant to provide support and refuge are inherently skewed against.
Because, in example, in Europe, everything based on documents,
right?
And if you are not having documents, what are you going to do? Italian have a word called black job, which is lavoro nero.
Right.
That is what you are going to do, and you are going to work.
That? What is a black
lavoro
job?
nero means work without contract.
Okay.
You go to farm to go and plug maybe oliver from 8, sometimes 7:30. Up to 5 o'clock in the evening time, in this heat, and they are going to give you 25 euro.
How much is that?
25 euro without food.
You can't survive on that.
You cannot survive on that in Italy here, because if you are paying house rent, you are paying boiler bill, you are paying condominium, you are paying water bill, life staffs, plus what you are going to eat, increase of your shelter.
Hello there, how you doing? Welcome to another episode of our conversations. My name is Indira Ganga. I'm a business journalist by profession and a digital content creator. I love coming on here and talking to you guys about Black people, Africans, our empowerment, and how we can rise up and take our rightful place at the global stage. Today I want to talk about 77% episode that DW did a while back. So
reflecting a larger issue that extends far beyond isolated incidents.
From West Africa,
while the unfolding situations in Ukraine have brought to light some troubling instances of racism within the country, it's important to remember that Ukraine has not always been viewed as a racist haven. For many, it's been seen as a safe and affordable destination for education, offering a higher standard of learning and respected institutions within Europe. Ukraine's appeal has historically been rooted in its reputation for providing quality education without the hefty price tags often associated with some other European nations. Many students, including those from Africa, have flocked to Ukrainian universities, drawn not just by financial considerations, but also by the promise of a friendly and welcoming environment. Unlike certain European counterparts like France, Italy, and Spain, Ukraine was often considered one of the last places where overt racism might be expected. In France, instances of systemic discrimination have surfaced, such as the controversial burkini ban that targeted Muslim women. Italy, too, has grappled with racial profiling, with reports of police stops based on appearance, particularly impacting individuals of African descent. Spain, in various instances, has faced criticism for racial profiling, exemplified by discrimination against migrants and people of African origin. However, recent experiences recounted by African students like Jessica Orampo and basketball player Maurice Creek in Ukraine reveal a different side to this narrative. Despite its previous reputation, Ukraine is not immune to the global challenge of racism. The hope now is that the country can reflect on these issues, address them, and regain its lost reputation as a place that warmly welcomes and serves all its people, irrespective of the color of their skin. Zooming in on these challenges also necessitates a look at the broader context. Instances of racial injustice, discrimination, and even deaths involving Black individuals have been documented across different countries. For instance, incidents of police violence against Black people in the United States, such as the tragic deaths of Black people like Breonna Taylor and Ahmaud Arbery, have sparked widespread protests and a renewed call for justice and equality. Similarly, the Windrush scandal in the United Kingdom exposed the mistreatment of Caribbean immigrants who were wrongly detained, denied legal rights, and even wrongfully deported. Instances of racial profiling and discrimination against Black communities in various European countries highlight the need for a broader conversation on racial.
When they get to the other side, what is waiting for them? Challenges. And these are not challenges that you cannot navigate. Because one, you got there illegally, so getting papers is not easy. Getting a hold of papers is not easy, and this is a system where papers are everything. So if you don't have the right papers, then you can't get a job, you can't get a driving license, you can't get a social security number. Then you're just another Jane Doe. Like you don't exist in the system. And employers know this. When you don't exist in the system, you can't. It's almost like you don't exist in that place. You go from even just basic things. You can't access healthcare. You can't access transport. You can't access even housing can be a challenge sometimes. And some of these things just outside of paperwork, they require money. That brings me to the next point. Jobs. There are literally little to no jobs that you can do if you're an illegal immigrant, right? Because who wants to hire somebody who's an illegal immigrant? It's against the laws of the country. So whatever job you get, it's going to be manual jobs, and these are jobs that do not pay well, and they are hard jobs. The conditions are hard, and your employer knows that you really need this job, so they will treat you whichever way they want, because there's nobody or no system in place that protects you. The system does not even know you exist in that place. You can die and nobody cares. Nobody will press charges because, first of all, you never existed in that system. And you know why they take it and they endure it? Because they have families at home. Families that sold everything to ensure that they leave the country and make their way to Europe or America to chase that dream. And the family, literally, I don't want to say they do not care, but also they do not care. You're in America, do whatever it takes. Send money back home, support the family. That was part of the deal. And so you're abroad and you're juggling so many things and so many challenges, and this just breaks my heart, but also warms my heart, because it's very important for Africans who are there to stop romanticizing life in Europe and America and start telling people the actual truth. Because when we know the truth, then we think twice about immigrating, particularly immigrating illegally, and that will push us to start rethinking how do we improve the systems and structures on the African continent. We need this place to work. This is our home, and that begins by making the right political decisions, then ensuring that we have strong institutions that ensure checks and balances in the political system. And if these people do not do their due diligence that they promised us during the election cycle, by the next election cycle, we do not retreat into our tribal cocoons and become idiots once again. We vote based off of somebody's track record and meritocracy.
TV, by the social media, call it Facebook, whatever.
Right.
The images.
We are hard-working Americans.
This is what's important to us.
Options for
images we see there are disillusional. This create false conception in the youth. We are talking about youth who think that what they see on the movies they watch in their poor conditions are actually true of Europe. It's a disillusion. When they arrive here, they feel that it's not the dreamland. This is the fiasco that has become a generational stuff, and that is much of the time we are not talking about only labor drainage. We are also talking about brain drainage, because we are talking about the youth. Mama, Africa is suffering because what are the sources that people are believing? The colonial stories, or what their brothers, what we are speaking now, so that people who are speaking as our brothers do not brave through the Sahara Desert or do not take the Mediterranean Sea. That's a cemetery we are calling. This is the worst postmodern genocide that is killing Africa, and I call this a generational destruction. We are not only talking about those people who lost their life here. I've seen a lot of dry bones, dry people, dry skulls, more in the Sahara Desert that I cannot see here. And anyone who are brave through never thought he is going to make it. It was just on luck. Why do people have to be constrained to make this thing? Most of our brothers and sisters, what they do here is to go and take a picture in front of a Ferrari, and that's really disinformation, misinformation.
It's not
this is why this type of whatever you call it, irregular migration, whatever, those prejudices, I don't accept it. But this is what lead to migration begetting itself.
Right. And I want to come to you, Ishmael, because
most of us, our parents sell their property to let us travel because of what our senior brothers who entered into Europe first came and sell it back home. That if you want to get a better life at the age of 18 to 35, the best place for you to enter is Europe, and which is not true.
Elijah, you
main perspective in the life in Europe is the same as the life they call it in the hell.
In hell?
Say, the life in Europe is life in the hell. Because in example in Europe, everything based on documents,
and
if you are not having documents, what are you going to do? Italian have a word called black job, which is lavoro nero. That is what you are going to do, and you are going to work.
What is a black
lavoro
job?
nero means work without contract. You go to farm to go and plug maybe oliver from 8, sometimes 7:30 up to 5 o'clock in the evening time in this heat, and they are going to give you 25 euro.
How much is that?
25 euro without food.
You can't survive on that.
You cannot survive on that in Italy here, because if you are paying house rent, you are paying boiler bill, you are paying condominium, you are paying water bill, life staffs, plus what you are going to eat, increase of your shelter.
I'll leave it there because I want to come back to you.
He said very important stuff there, because it boils to the document. In Italy, number one thing that's really important is the document. At first, it's not really easy, For I know, like when I came, it was not easy, because you have to go through the process, and even the process it takes time. you know. And upon this, you know, you get pressures from different aspects of your life. Like most of us, like immigrants, we have pressures from home, you know. When we come there, like when we come to Italy, people call, like our parents call, family call, like, can you send me this? Can you do this? Can you do that? Not they like they forgot about, like, you have this like pressure that you are in a new place, you know.
Ishmael, so
Personally, I want to speak to our politicians, and I call them sellouts, you know, because they are not looking at the interests, the needs, the vulnerability that constrain people to migrate. Because to the Gambia or to Senegal, to African political leaders, it is convenient, even if we die in the streets, even if we die in the sea, as much as we can send remittances, it is convenient for them that we, the youths who are potential revolutionaries, leave the country and let them to dictate. So I am telling Africans who are there that I am guilty for being here. If you come here, you are running from your work. You are running from changing Africa, and the generations that will become failures as well. I contributed to it, and you are also contributing to it. So if I am speaking, and if you can hear me today, I am saying I should get back, and then we should work on what is happening, because the future is in Africa. But the real question is the future in Africa for Africans? Are we talking about Chinese colonialists, or we are talking about multinationals who have stolen us the traditional livelihoods that in fact we hate ourselves? Africa is still a colonial economy, so it depends on what people are running from. We cannot talk about a solution without talking about the causes of the problems.
Right.
It will be false that we will talk about, okay, people will stay there, which we all live in one system, capitalism, that create illusions in everyone. I want to live in a house. It doesn't matter whether I live in the village or not. Who am I not to hope that I need the best for myself? We are slaved everywhere. We are discriminated. We are stigmatized. And I am not saying this is particularly Italy, but what are the other European countries who are helping Italy with the load of the migration since 2015? Why is Africa enslaved? We aren't poor. We will never be poor. The future is still there. The question is, who is this future for? Is it for Africans when we all run from the things that we should try to make up there?
Well, that's all I had for you this episode of our conversations. My name is Adira Ganga. Thank you very much for watching.
Yeah, that's what's going on, and it's really sad. But you see how Zelensky, he denies it for Ukraine. Guy's a joke, man. He's a joke. I mean, he's a joke. I mean, he's a terrible politician. He don't care about his own people. He don't care about nothing. All he care about is his money. And causing lives for what? But my heart goes out to the people, because I know it's got to be something to come out of a country and your own government don't even want to look after you like that. That's terrible. And but they get, it's just got to be careful. It's got to be some other parts of the country, Africa, that's got to be a little bit more civilized, Even if it's that one particular, a few particular countries, there's got to be another part of Africa that's got to be better, or at least something next to it. But my heart goes out to people like that. But you see how racism is, and you see how even at the official level where the Nigerians are at, that the Saudi Arabia reject this half of them, told them they can't fly over here. These people got money. Some Nigerians got money, but you see, so it's a wake-up call, and even to some African immigrants. You start to see how things really are when you step outside the ones to be criticizing about why do black people do this and why do black. Now you see what black people in America go through, because you got a taste of it over in Europe. Because I've heard some, it was an African dude mentioned that he get tired of his fellow immigrants talking about how lazy black people is, and you don't know the story. You don't know what black people over in America contribute. And when he told it takes for him to tell you himself, and he wouldn't agree with it. So it's not all African, but he said somehow some Africans come over and they think they're gonna get step up, and they find out otherwise. And just like in Europe and other places, it's the same thing. And people don't understand. No one cares about what part of Africa you're from. It all comes back down to this. Don't care whether I'm American, and I'll go with an African or Caribbean. They always look at this. I don't know why we see that one gonna get better than the other. No, if they do it them like, they're gonna do us like that. That's clearly what they show in Ukraine. But and not just Ukraine, Italy, and like the guy said, Spain and France, and a few other countries like that. So you a black traveler, be careful out there where you go. Alright then, ladies and gentlemen, hope you enjoyed the video. Like and share and subscribe it. And if you know any any African immigrants, show them this video. Show what's going on. Tell what's going on and what's really going on, and really stay out of Ukraine if you can possible. Go to another school in another country, man. Don't go. Why put up with that crap? It ain't worth all that, man. You almost practically died. Or some people practically died getting up out of there. And I'm good that the African Union rejected him. Because all he does is take people money and want their fighters to go fight alongside them. And then you guys don't even know this. Half of his military is Azov. Azov is Nazis. Nazis don't like anybody other than pure Aryan white. But he wants you to fight along pure Aryan white people because since they want to eradicate the planet of other people and subjugate other people so they can feel like they'll be on top. But he wants you to come over there and fight. Well, I don't blame him for what? You get all the Nazis from across the world and come over and fight with you. Since y'all want to pump up Hitler and stuff like that, why don't you go? At least one thing about Islam, if they're gonna die for what they cause. If you gonna be about it, talk about it, be about it. But it's like I said, yeah, if you want to come on, go on over to fight the Russians. Be along your Ukrainian Azov. Half of them is Azov supremacist brothers. Go over there right now. Because he sure could use some of your help. He should get some of these skinheads out of America and want these Nazis out of America, Nazis out of Brazil and other places, and let them go and fight. Fight for the cause of Aryan nation. Worshipping a man that take off half the people in the country in the 1940s, and they're gonna put him as an idol god. But anyway, alright then, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed this video. Like and subscribe. Till next time, see you on the next video, and be blessed. Be careful if you're an African immigrant on your travels. Be very selective. Be blessed. Take care.